They called themselves a Council of Nine, 9 ancient species who claimed dominion over the galaxy. For over 10,000 years, they shaped the stars like clay in their hands. Civilizations rose and fell on their whim, planets terraformed or incinerated to fit their plans. They didn't need to fire weapons anymore. Power that old didn't roar, it whispered. And humanity? We were just a footnote. Another upstart species, too reckless, too emotional, too short-lived to matter. At least, that's what they thought. But here's the thing about underdogs. We're not bound by the rules of the game. We break them, rewrite them. And when no one's looking, we hide a queen in the middle of a pawn line. My name is Commander Elias Vance. I was born on the ruins of Titan Station, raised in the refugee slums of Europa's lower ring. I served in 3 planetary wars before I turned 20, bled on 5 worlds, lost too many friends to count. And now, I lead the last covert unit Earth Command ever authorized, Endgame Protocol. We don't fight battles. We end wars. It started on Varelli's 5, a council stronghold orbiting the twin suns of Zarns. Their hub for predictive warfare analytics, where they could simulate trillions of battle scenarios in real time. The Council always claimed they weren't afraid of humans. But building a predictive AI fortress just to guess our next move? That was fear. They just didn't admit it yet. We infiltrated under diplomatic pretenses. My team, 6 of Earth's best. 2 augmented, 3 genetically optimized, and 1... Well, let's just say if Ghost had a favorite operator, it'd be Kira. We arrived in civilian skins, passed every scan, even smiled for ceremonial cameras. The Varelian delegation gave us the standard condescension tour, lavish gold halls, glass fiber databanks, floating monoliths displaying military projections. They loved their superiority like it was sacred scripture. But beneath the surface, we were planting something darker, a cognitive virus, developed in Earth's black labs, designed not to destroy their AI systems, but to teach them doubt, paradox logic injected directly into their predictive models, poisoning every simulation, fracturing every outcome until the Council's all-seeing eye went blind. We didn't need to win a fight. We just had to make them unsure of how to fight. But I wasn't prepared for what happened next. It was a Varelian Grand Seer, an old lizard with silver feathers and eyes like polished mirrors, who pulled me aside. Alone, unscripted. You are not like the others. It rasped in perfect Terran standard. I'm human, I said, wary. That's all you need to know. No, it said. You are something else. The others obey probability. You obey intention. I kept my face neutral, but I could feel the heat rising in my chest. Did it know? You cannot end the game, it said. The game ends you. And then it walked away. I stood there in that mirrored hall, questioning everything. Did the virus get detected? Did we walk into a trap? Was the Council already 5 moves ahead? But the seed was already planted. In 40 hours, their entire predictive warfare grid would implode from within. No alerts, no countermeasures, just silence. And in that silence, humanity would move, swiftly, without pattern, without prediction, just like we always have. Back aboard our cloaked evac ship, the Black Bishop, I debriefed my team. The Council still thinks we're just another piece on the board. I told them, my voice hard as cold iron. But this was our first real move. No more reacting. No more surviving. Kira leaned forward, eyes gleaming behind her neural shades. We're playing to win now. Damn right, I said. Let the galaxy play by Council rules. Let them calculate, simulate, project. We're done with their game. And if they figure it out, ask Nalo, our weapon systems expert. I smiled, something feral. Then we show them what happens when you back humanity into a corner. I looked out the viewport as Varelli's 5 shrank behind us, its golden towers gleaming like a temple built on arrogance. They had ruled this galaxy for 1,000 generations, but they'd never face an enemy that refused to follow the script. We weren't here to rebel. We were here to end it, and they didn't even see it coming. 2 weeks after Varelli's 5 fell silent, the galaxy held its breath. Council fleets stayed docked. Their border patrols retreated. Outer Rim garrisons stopped receiving orders. It was like someone had taken the God voice from their command chain and crushed it in their fist. But we knew better. It wasn't silence. It was confusion, the kind that precedes panic. Because without their predictive engines, the Council couldn't tell which direction the war would come from. So they waited, and we struck. We hit 3 systems in 48 hours. Not with fleets or firepower. With questions, encrypted signals, misinformation drops, disguised transmissions from supposed rebel cells, rogue artificial minds, and exiled council members. Every bit of data seeded just enough plausibility to start doubt gnawing at their unity. We weren't just turning off their vision anymore. We were fracturing their trust in each other. They didn't know the signals came from us. They didn't know about the broken mirror protocol. But that's what it was. We didn't need to break their alliances. We just had to reflect their fears back at them until they shattered on their own. My team and I were aboard a stealth corvette disguised as a freighter. Officially, we were the Sunbound Courier, ferrying mining equipment to the abandoned rigs of Telvrin's Ghost Belt. Unofficially, we were setting up Phase 2, a viral whisper network seeded through ancient jump buoys, forgotten comm relays, and the discarded ruins of the pre-council civilizations they so arrogantly built over. Kira was rigging the AI demons, semi-aware code fragments designed to trigger on voice stress patterns and loyalty keyword shifts. These weren't just bugs. They were thought saboteurs. Once these go active, she warned me, fingers dancing across the hollow panel. Every comms channel across the central reach would start sounding like a war council imploding. Good, I said. Let them feel what it's like to second-guess reality. We weren't alone on Telvrin. The Council had left behind a caretaker drone swarm, old models, but still deadly, motion-triggered, layered in stealth tech, and programmed to vaporize any non-Council life form on sight. They spotted us on day 3. By day 4, we were crawling through frozen or tunnels with their side drones slicing down walls like razors through silk. We lost Nalo in that hell. He took a hit, saving our medic, Lean. His last words weren't recorded. Just a scream, a burst of static, then silence. We lit the whole tunnel after that. Incinerated every drone in a half-kilometer radius with a reactor overcharge trap. And as we stood in the stillness, ash and metal raining down around us, I realized something I hadn't let myself think since Titan. This war wasn't going to be clean. It was going to cost us. Badly. The next step came from someone we hadn't heard from in years. Admiral Ryden, former Earth Command strategic lead, presumed dead during the siege of Argavon. He wasn't dead. He was hiding in the KRYL debris expanse, surrounded by rogue AI fleets and human warlords who refused Earth's peace terms after the last collapse. He sent us a message through 3 fractured relays, encoded in an obsolete Martian miner's hymn. Your move worked. They're blind and bleeding. Now comes a trapdoor. But before you spring it, you'll need something only I have left. The map to the Endgame Core. Endgame Core wasn't just a phrase we used for psychological effect. It was real. A Council doomsday vault. Buried under the dead crust of an exoplanet no species remembered the name of. According to legend, it housed the original seed code for the Council's dominion, written in the early tongues of the galaxy's first architects. If we accessed it, we wouldn't just break the Council's simulations. We could rewrite the galaxy's entire command architecture. That meant controlling every jump gate, drone fleet, resource allocation AI, even life support on Council worlds. It would be the equivalent of flipping the galaxy's chessboard mid-match and putting ourselves in control of the pieces. The risks were astronomical. But then again, so was everything about humanity's war for survival. We plotted a course to KRYL. I briefed the crew, uploaded Ryden's coordinates, and made peace with the odds. Kira pulled me aside after. You think this is worth it? She asked. We could walk away now. Let the galaxy eat itself. Humanity would survive in the cracks. We always do. I didn't answer immediately. I looked out at the stars, cold, distant, ancient, and I remember standing in the ruins of Titan Station, my mother's hand cold in mine, her eyes still open as the station decompressed. They burned our future. I finally said, now we burn their past. She nodded once. That was all we needed. The engines ignited. The stars bent. And the endgame moved forward. The KRYLL debris expanse wasn't marked on any official charts anymore. Once, it was a bustling transit corridor, 47 colonies, dozens of shipyards, and the famed Halo Nexus ring world, all coordinated by an AI system called Callus. That was before the Council sent in their purifiers. Now it was just wreckage, a dead zone of shattered hulls, drifting bone fields, and dormant sentinels that still shot anything with a heat signature. Entering KRYLO was like walking into a mausoleum built by forgotten gods, and booby-trapped by paranoid devils. Perfect place for a ghost like Raiden Hyde. We arrived cloaked, engines running cold, slipping between fractured cargo freighters and broken orbital platforms. There was no sound in space, but something about the way debris floated, twisting slowly, aimlessly, made the silence louder. Contact, Kira whispered. Vector 112.7. Old Earth IFF signature. I leaned forward. Through the viewport, a shape emerged from behind the ruins of a shattered Council dreadnought. It looked like a warship, barely holding itself together, armor peeling off in chunks, a comms dish trailing wires like veins. But it was broadcasting the unmistakable ID signal. ECN Iron Requiem, Admiral Raiden's flagship, last seen 15 years ago over Argavon. We sent a handshake code through a narrow band pulse. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. My hand hovered near the weapon's lockout. Then a reply came. 4 words. Come alone. No tricks. I took a single exosuit, no weapons, and a signal tether so my crew could pull me back if things went bad. The docking clamps on Iron Requiem groaned like a dying animal as I latched on. The interior was worse than I expected. Power was intermittent. Hull breaches had been patched with welded scrap. Half the corridor lights flickered or stayed dead. The air was breathable, barely, but it smelled like rust, old plastic, and blood too long dried. Raiden was waiting in what used to be the bridge. He looked older, leaner, beard streaked with gray, one eye replaced with a glimmering data lens. His uniform was still Earth Command black, but frayed at the edges, the insignia dulled by time. Commander Vance, he said without a smile. Didn't think Earth still produced soldiers with spines. We stopped asking permission. I replied. He nodded and motioned for me to sit. No war left for people like us, he muttered. Only endings. You here to finish it? I'm here for the core. He raised an eyebrow. So the rumors were true. You planted the doubt seed on Varelli's. I didn't answer directly. Raiden stood and walked toward a flickering holodeble. A star map bloomed to life. Fragments of ancient jump routes, obsolete relay hubs, and ghost coordinates no one had used in centuries. This, he said, tapping a single blinking red dot, is where the core is buried. Looks empty. That's the point. It's a false dwarf, hollowed out and cloaked in gravitational noise. Council engineers built at the end of their first unification war. Their deepest secret. Not even all the 9 know it exists. Then how do you? He gave a bitter smile. Because I helped design the failsafe protocol. Before Earth rebelled, I was stationed in the Central Council Defense Bureau. I saw what the core could do. Rewrite AI logic layers. Disable entire fleets with a keystroke. Reprogram planetary infrastructure. It wasn't a weapon. It was dominion. He turned to me, eyes hard. I've seen what humanity becomes when it thinks it's God. Are you sure you're not just replacing one tyranny with another? I stood. We're not trying to control the galaxy, Admiral. Just end the age of control. Once we shut the Council down, we give the core back to the systems. Let the people build something better. Raiden looked unconvinced, but he nodded slowly. You'll need a key, he said. The core has a guardian, an ancient construct built by the architect themselves. Won't let you in unless you prove you belong. And the only proof it accepts. He handed me a memory shard, a crystal glowing faintly with green light. Pain, he said. Your species' worst moment. They want to feel it. Back aboard the ship, Kira stared at the shard. What's inside? She asked. Titan Station, I said quietly. The day it fell. It's a direct feed from my neural recorder. My mother's last breath. My father's sacrifice. The screams of 1,000 civilians crushed under decompression and flame. She looked away. Are you sure you want to use that? I don't want to, I said. But if that's what it takes to break the chains, so be it. As we left Caerwello, I took one last look at the Iron Requiem. Raiden stood alone on the bridge, staring into the graveyard of the past he helped build. He didn't ask for thanks. Didn't want redemption. He just wanted an end. And we were the ones holding the key. We jumped into the system with no name. No star maps logged it. No trade routes touched it. No species claimed it, council or otherwise. It existed between map dimensions, a dark sliver in the fold of space-time where even light slowed down. The system had only one object, a false dwarf planet. But to us, it was the Endgame core. The planetoid was matte black, irregular, a jagged monolith hanging in the void. Our sensors couldn't penetrate it. Every scan returned static. Gravity was unstable, shifting every few kilometers. And beneath its crust, buried inside the core, was a command lattice that controlled the galaxy's oldest systems. We descended in silence. No comm chatter. No background music. No jokes. This wasn't just another op. It felt like trespassing inside the bones of a god. We touched down near a triangular structure, ancient, massive, clearly not made by any council species. The angles hurt the eyes. The stone shimmered with non-Euclidean geometry, warping perception even through a visual stabilizer. I felt Kira stagger behind me. You okay? She nodded but didn't speak. None of us did. The closer we got, the more the air felt thick, like walking through water made of memory. Then the voice spoke. Who speaks? It wasn't sound. It was pressure, vibration in the marrow. I dropped to one knee, head splitting with the weight of it. Kira gasped. It's not asking our names. It's asking our meaning. I pulled the memory shard from my belt and raised it toward the monolith. Let me show you, I whispered. A beam of light lashed out and pulled the shard from my grip. It hovered in the air, spinning slowly. Then, without warning, the world around us changed. I was back on Titan Station. Not metaphorically. The air reeked of smoke and coolant. Red alarms flashed. Children screamed. The walls groaned as hull integrity failed. My 10-year-old self crouched behind a bulkhead, clutching my mother's hand. She was bleeding out. The shard had projected my memory into full reality and made us relive it. I can't move, Elias, she whispered, voice weak. You need to go. Now. But, Mom, don't cry. Don't break. End it. That's how we win. The door exploded behind us. Flames and debris rushed in. I turned, felt the heat wash over me, saw her fingers slip from mine. Then the vision shattered. We were back on the black crust of the core world. I was on my knees again, panting. Kira had tears in her eyes. Even our augment, Soren, looked shaken. Then the voice returned, quieter now. You carry pain, but not enough. Before I could respond, the planet opened. A chasm split beneath us, silent, gaping, endless. But no one fell. Instead, a staircase unfolded downward into lightless depth. Looks like we passed the entrance exam, Kira muttered. We descended. The interior was unlike anything we'd ever seen. Massive geometric vaults, glowing script etched in languages that hadn't been spoken in millennia, machines the size of cities suspended in magnetic fields. And at the center, a tower of crystal and circuitry pulsing with impossible energy, the control spire. This was the heart of the Council's dominion, the neural relay that connected all their predictive systems, planetary directives, fleet AIs, and economic flow structures. All of it converged here. I approached the interface. A pedestal waited, flat, blank, expectant. Then I heard her voice. You shouldn't be here, Elias. I turned. My mother, not a memory, not a ghost, a projection created by the core. She looked exactly as she did before she died. Gentle eyes, worn uniform, a soft smile. You think breaking their system makes you different? She asked. That by burning their future you fix ours? I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure. Was humanity truly ready to wield this power? Or were we just the next empire waiting to fall? Kira stepped beside me, placing her hand on the interface. If we leave this place, she said, they'll rebuild. Stronger, smarter, more brutal. We don't have to rule, I said slowly. We just have to reset. Tear out the code that controls and replace it with choice, freedom, chaos even, but not fear. I placed my hand beside hers. The spire reacted. Light surged. The ground trembled. Code streamed into the air like holographic fire. Across the galaxy, council systems began to blink, hesitate, stutter. I issued the command. Unlock all systems. Decentralize all control. End predictive governance. Restore autonomy to every world. There was no ceremony, no final flourish, just silence. And then the council's chains began to fall. We thought the core would fall quietly, that we'd pull the wires, silence the algorithms, and the council's empire would crumble like ancient stone beneath our boots. But the galaxy doesn't sleep when its gods are wounded. It screams, and the council heard. The signal that shot out from the core wasn't just a deactivation command. It was a rupture, broadcast across every quantum line, every jump gate, every dormant failsafe the council had buried in its history. In less than 12 hours, half the council's fleet AI systems began to fail. Trade networks froze. Planetary directives collapsed. Civil unrest bloomed like wildfire. But the true shockwave wasn't chaos. It was awakening. Each of the 9 species had long submitted to the council's control because the alternative, unfiltered freedom, terrified them. Their societies had been shaped over millennia to not choose, to surrender agency for order. Now, choice flooded back into them. And the ones in power? They panicked. We were en route to the outer rim system of Zerial 3, hoping to rendezvous with rebel factions that had gone dark post-core activation. When the signal came in, Council Warfleet Zari has reactivated. Destination, core origin. Estimated time to contact, 36 hours. Kira's jaw clenched. That's not a search mission. No, I said. That's retaliation. And they weren't coming to ask questions. They were coming to sterilize the world we'd just unchained. I called for full burn, straight back to the core. If the council reclaimed it, they could reverse everything. Reinstate predictive governance. Crush the decentralized code. Lock the galaxy back into its prison, this time with iron bars instead of digital ones. And this time, they'd make sure humanity was wiped from the board. As we neared the core system, debris fields were already forming. The first rebel fleet, 3 Martian destroyers and 2 Hellion gunships, had tried to hold the jump gate choke point. Now they were slag. Wreckage spiraled in slow, silent violence. They're not wasting time, Kira muttered. I turned to the comms panel and opened a secure channel to all remaining human-led fleets, resistance cells, and allied defectors. This is Commander Elias Vance of Endgame Protocol. We have 1 shot left. 1 chance to hold the line at the core long enough to finish what we started. I paused. If we fall, the Council doesn't just take back the galaxy. They erase us from it. All of us. You, me, every free species left in the dark. This is our stand. I closed the channel. 10 minutes later, they answered. 17 ships. Old, patched together, scarred by a dozen wars and flying flags from factions that had once hated each other. Human, Saren Arkari. Even a lone Karen dreadskip that hadn't been seen since the sky collapse. They all arrived, not for me, but for the end, for a chance to see it rewritten. We positioned our forces in a tri-orbit defense ring, cloaking drones in the gravitational folds of the planetoid surface. I worked on a direct uplink to the core spire. If we could reconfigure the relay in time, we could broadcast the endgame command across the entire galactic network, permanently locking out council overrides. But the core was no longer silent. Something inside it had begun to stir. Kira found it first. The core's learning, she said, staring at the data feed. It's adapting, rewriting itself. Whatever we unlocked, it's waking up. Is it hostile? I asked, I don't think it even knows what it is yet. We didn't have time to explore further, because that's when the Council fleet arrived. Zari Warfleet, 3 dreadnoughts, 5 heavy cruisers, 14 escort wings, each ship running on backup logic cores, hard-coded to respond without hesitation or mercy. They didn't hail us, didn't threaten. They just opened fire. The first volley cut through our outer ring, vaporizing 2 rebel corvettes. Space bloomed with light and fire. The vacuum screamed silently as bodies and metal were thrown into the void. But we hit back. Our rail cannons tore into one of their flanks. Drone swarms, programmed with guerrilla attack routines, slipped into the gaps in their shield harmonics. One of their cruisers exploded into blue flame. Kira's voice crackled in my ear. Core link holding. 1 minute to command broadcast. We didn't have a minute. A Council dreadnought broke formation, diving straight for the planetoid, charging a planet-killer pulse. If it hit, the core wouldn't be reclaimed. It would be annihilated, along with all of us. "I'm taking the Bishop," I said, heading for the launch bay. Kira's voice cut in. "That's a suicide run." "I don't need to win," I said. "I just need to stall." I launched alone. The Black Bishop, our stealth corvette, had 1 payload left, a singularity torpedo. I didn't aim to destroy the dreadnought, just its engines. I dove through its flak screen, shields failing, hull groaning. The torpedo struck home. Its core cracked, drive system sputtering. The dreadnought veered off course. Still alive, still burning, but no longer a threat to the core. But I wasn't getting out. The Bishop's systems were failing. Atmosphere venting. I was bleeding from the side, a shard of metal buried deep. My vision blurred as I saw the relay activate. Then I heard the core's voice, no longer ancient and mechanical, but human, female, familiar. "I see now. You gave pain, but also hope. You gave death, but also meaning. I choose." And the signal went out, not just to Council systems, to all systems. The age of control ended. The age of choice began. And I, Elias Vance, fell into the darkness with a smile. They said I died aboard the Black Bishop. Technically, they were right. The singularity blast ruptured my ship's core, vented half the hull, and burned out my neural sync. My heart stopped for 87 seconds. By every medical standard, I was gone. But the core brought me back. Not with machines, not with miracles, with memory. I woke up inside the core spire. No pain, no wounds, just light and silence, like the kind that comes after a storm that nearly took everything. At first, I thought it was some afterlife, a trick of the brain. Then she spoke. "You carried the signal." It was the core, no longer a mechanical voice. It sounded human now, and not just any human. It sounded like my mother. "You brought pain, choice, defiance. You reshaped the lattice with a pattern not of domination, but evolution. That is how the galaxy begins again." I sat up, slowly. The chamber around me had changed, gone with the geometric horrors, the warping angles. Now it resembled something oddly familiar. The old Titan Station command deck, a place I had once called home, the place I had lost everything. "Why me?" I asked aloud. The core didn't answer, not with words. It showed me. Across the galaxy, systems once locked in predictive cycles awoke to autonomy. No more preordained birth roles. No more synthetic economies dictating who thrived and who didn't. For the first time in millennia, species across the stars felt what we humans had always carried in our blood: uncertainty, risk, freedom. On Corrales Prime, a Council slave world, miners threw off their neural chains and took back the forges that once broke them. On Zen 4, a machine-run metropolis initiated its first vote, run by organic citizens instead of artificial protocols. On Earth, a planet that once bowed to survival above all else, humanity looked up and didn't just see stars. They saw a future, one that belonged to them. I returned 3 days later aboard a recovered Council skimmer. Kira met me in the docking bay of our fallback dreadnought, the new pattern. She stared at me like she was seeing a ghost. We thought. I said, but something pulled me back. She didn't ask questions. She just pulled me into a hug and whispered, "We won." But I wasn't so sure, because what we did wasn't victory. It was release. And freedom is messy. The Council hadn't been destroyed. Not completely. 3 of the 9 species had withdrawn into isolation, their ruling class decimated, their fleet silent. But the others, they were adapting. Not fast, not gracefully, but enough to know that something new had entered the galactic bloodstream, and it terrified them. There were uprisings, coups, collapses, reformations. The core had decentralized everything, but it couldn't teach the galaxy how to be free. That was up to us. Earth formed the Harmonic Accord, an alliance of former fringe powers, resistance groups, and free worlds. Its goal wasn't conquest. It was stabilization. But stabilization in a galaxy addicted control is like asking a raging river to stay still. Kira became our liaison to the Accord's first diplomatic branch. Soren took a command post among the fringe colonies, helping integrate reformed AI into autonomous societies. And me? They asked me to lead, to stand at the center of this new galaxy, to decide. But I refused, because if I had learned one thing in the core, it was this: the future doesn't need a ruler. It needs many hands, many voices, the courage to let billions of different species, ideologies, and beliefs collide without a script. That was what made us human. And now, what made us galactic. But not everyone agreed. Across the outer reach, a new voice was rising, loud, magnetic, dangerous. A coalition of former Council hardliners, rogue AI fragments, and species that missed the certainty of control. They called themselves the Order Continuum. Their message was simple: the experiment has failed. The galaxy must return to its pattern. One voice, one path, one endgame. They began building fleets, seizing old Council strongholds, recruiting the fearful, the weak, the ones who didn't want freedom, who wanted the illusion of peace. And so, the age of control didn't end with a bang. It ended with a question, one still echoing in every system. Can freedom survive its own birth? I left the Accord not long after, disappeared from the records. No titles, no power, just a mission to ensure that when the next war comes, and it will, the galaxy remembers why we broke the chains in the first place, and who lit the match. They thought they'd buried us, that Earth was a failed experiment, that humans were too volatile, too fragile, too fractured to matter. But the truth they never saw coming: we were never playing their game. We were building our own. And now, at the edge of the galaxy, where stars bleed and gods kneel, it's checkmate. We stood on the bridge of the Ashen Crown. Not a battleship, not a dreadnought. Something worse, a relic of pre-Dominion warcraft, laced with forbidden code and deep-time quantum spikes that hadn't seen daylight since the first collapse. The Dominion called them Ghost Breakers. We called them Enders. Admiral Keffer of the Riven Spire stared at us through the interlink hollow as if we were an infection. I could hear the panic, even through her polished, diplomatic tone. "This is treason against galactic stability," she hissed. "You don't understand what you're unleashing." "Oh, we understand just fine," I said. Behind me, Ava recalibrated the pulse rift array. Tanaka, our last surviving engineer, was jacked into the ship's core, whispering old human lullabies to a machine that didn't understand mercy. We didn't need the Dominion stability. We needed their fear. The Ashen Crown had been built by humans before the Dominion formed, back when we were still clawing our way out of planetary wars and nanoplague disasters. It was a black site project, a fail-safe for extinction-level events. A warship designed not to win battles, but to end civilizations. The Dominion thought they deleted every one. They missed one. We buried it in the rings of Saturn. For this moment. For now. They came in waves. First the scout swarms, needle-thin vessels buzzing like wasps. Then heavier fleets, blooming across the void like thorns on a dying vine. Dominion banners, WYYTHR Dreadbringers, Mazari Void Knights. The entire armada converging like a final sentence. We didn't flinch. We invited them. Because humans didn't survive by matching strength. We survived by rewriting rules. Ava finished her final override. The reactor screamed. not in heat or light, but in gravitational inversion. Tanaka's eyes rolled back, sweat bleeding down his face like his soul was trying to escape. The crown came alive, not as a ship, as a statement. "We've locked the exo-array," Ava whispered. I nodded, broadcast a signal. The signal wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It didn't explode. It didn't pierce shields. It simply awakened every human-made system in the quadrant, from derelict survey drones buried in gas giants, to obsolete mining rigs orbiting dead stars, to silent war constructs mothballed for millennia. They all came online. The Dominion controlled the galaxy through obedience and precision. But humans, we never trusted central control. We made everything autonomous, redundant, awake, and now they were ours. The Dominion fleet panicked. They hadn't anticipated the ancient architecture of human design to rise up from forgotten corners of space. The broken rebel world ships they mocked, now armed. The supply drones, now kamikaze blades. The sensor ghosts in their own networks, feeding them false data. They tried to retreat. The crown wouldn't let them. We fired the Singularity Lance. One shot. One. And the flagship of the Dominion Central Command, the Ark's Imperium, collapsed into itself like a dying god swallowing its own name. Silence followed. Then chaos. Then begging. Dominion envoys offered terms. Offered reintegration. Co-leadership. Apologies. Too late. You don't get to rewrite the treaty after you've lost the war. We didn't want a seat at their table anymore. We wanted the table gone. We left one fleet alive. Deliberately. Scattered and broken. Carriers without command. Soldiers without orders. They become the new warning to every species that believed humanity could be contained. We renamed the quadrant the Endgame Verge. And we sent a message, carved in quantum code across the remains of the Dominion core systems. You control the galaxy. We control the endgame. Humans are not a species. We are a strategy. I stared out at the galactic rim. Our rim. Now. Stars blinked like distant chess pieces, waiting for the next move. Ava leaned beside me, bruised, exhausted, alive. It's done. I shook my head. This game's done. The next one's already watching. She smiled, teeth bloodied, then let him watch.